Good evening and welcome to a program devoted entirely to Lefties Losing It. Let's start in New York City, where communist Zoran Mamdani is poised to be the next mayor, and he thought it was time to really focus on the true victims of 9/11, his family. Grab a tissue, folks. This is rather emotional.
I want to use this moment to speak to the Muslims of New York City. I want to speak to the memory of my aunt. Who stopped taking the subway after September 11th because she did not feel safe in her hijab.
Yeah, it's devastating, folks. It really is. I mean, his poor aunt had to take a couple of cabs. I mean, how devastating for the Mamdani family. And that's if you believe him. And frankly, I don't. After every Islamist terrorist attack, there is such a focus on stamping out Islamophobia. Yes, the leftists propping up the Islamists will come to rue that day. Let's hear now from Zoran Mamdani intern Arzu Malik, who is calling on Muslims to be gangster and jihad.
And the true believer knows that none of this is in vain, that this is all jihad, that this is all ibadah, and that this is all counted for by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And so the conversation of doxing, the conversation of getting arrested and suspended, I think it's time for Muslims to start to say, all right, so what? Do what you want. I'm gonna do what I gotta do, because it's about time to do that. How gangsta are you? That's just my question. How much are you willing to do it? And I know everyone has their own risk levels, but at the end of the day, that's a question to ask ourselves. How committed am I to this? To what extent of my personal material gains am I willing to sacrifice for this bigger noble cause?
Let's go to another failing city, crime-riddled Chicago, which has been ruled by Democrats for decades and decades, and where the current mayor, Brandon Johnson, is triggered by factual terms like illegal immigrant.
We don't have illegal aliens. I don't know if that's from some sort of sci-fi message that you wish have had. Well, listen, the legal term for my people were slaves. You want me to use that term too? So look, let's just get the language right. We're talking about undocumented individuals that are human beings. The last thing that I'm going to do is accept the type of racist, nasty language to describe human beings.
Now let's have a little Hollywood input. Actress Jenna Ortega was asked about who her heroes were and gave this rather incoherent virtue-signalling response. Is she okay?
Who's your hero today?
Well, my mom will always be a hero, but another hero of mine today, I don't know, I'm quite gravitated towards the people of Palestine and the way that they speak up, and, you know, the way that they're continuously using their voice no matter how much the world seems to ignore them. It's very important and it's very commendable, and you know, I would like to lift and raise their voices as well.
Now to a rather generously proportioned woman who seems to think white people are lazy, dirty and violent. I can only hope this is a parody, a prank. Surely no one can be this boldly racist.
So just white people in general, I'm tired of you, mother. I'm tired of your incompetence. I'm tired of your laziness. I'm tired of you not washing your ass on a regular basis, and then we have to be susceptible to that. I'm tired of you having babies. I'm tired of y'all raising and birthing and raising serial killers, pedophiles, mass shooters, and all this, and then you tell black people that we're violent. Everything about violence, we learned it from you. So you're the root cause of it.
Now, it would be uncharitable of me to list some crime statistics right about now and some demographic breakdowns, but just imagine if the word black was substituted for white there in that crazy rant. Now, I didn't think me praising Arnold Schwarzenegger was going to be on the cards, but here we are. 2025 has been a wild year. Here is the Hollywood star and former California governor dropping a brutal fact check on CNN's Jake Tapper. Now, despite being a former Republican governor, Jake would have thought he was on safe ground with Arnie, given he is a full-blown TDS case. But no, Arnie surprised us all. Watch what he says when Tapper tries to blame Republicans' redistricting efforts and calls it cooking the books.
This all started because of redistricting in Texas, and this was Trump pushing Republican-controlled states to throw out their current congressional maps so as to cook the books, so that it is less likely for Democrats to retake control of the House during the next year midterms. I mean, is it fair to argue that do you believe that the Republican Party is starting this?
No, Jake. There has been gerrymandering going on for 200 years. There is such extreme gerrymandering going on that in a state like Massachusetts, that has like 40% of the people voting for Trump, they have 0 representatives. The Republican Party has 0 representatives sent to the House. Think about that. In New Mexico, if 45% of the people voted for Trump and voted Republican, and 0 is sent to the House, 0 representative from the Republican Party.
You can just see Jake's little heart breaking into 1,000 pieces as Arnie betrays him with the truth, with cold hard facts. Now to President Trump, who has set a sizzling pace in Asia. Within hours of touching down, he had signed 4 trade deals, met regional leaders, met the Brazilian president, and presided over a historic peace deal between Thailand and Cambodia. But before all that, he unveiled some new dance moves. And it's been a while since we featured AOC in this segment. Let's rectify that. Here is the diabolically ill-informed young socialist campaigning for a communist, Zoran Mamdani. Hope you've got your earplugs handy because it's about to get real screechy.
Jews escaping Holocaust, Black Americans fleeing slavery and Jim Crow, Latinos seeking a better life, Native people standing for themselves, Asian Americans coming together in Queens, in Brooklyn, in the Bronx, in Manhattan, in Staten Island.
Oh, wow. Now, AOC was also keen to trumpet how sane she is, how sane the mad left are who are supporting Zoran. I don't think she believes what she's saying.
But we must remember, in a time such as this, we are not the crazy ones, New York City. We are not the outlandish ones, New York City. They want us to think we are crazy. We are sane.
Let's see how sane they are. Let's hear from another Zoran Mamdani supporter who obviously values inclusion, tolerance and respectful dialogue and, of course, sanity.
You turned on a nasty Israeli song.
You're talking. He's attacking us. Can you please have somebody?
That's a lie. You're monsters.
Because I'm a Jew.
Oh dear, that was unpleasant. But this next Zoran fangirl is actually far more frightening because she used to be a judge. Yes, a judge whose judgment is obviously warped.
He's young and he's a person of color. I think he's going to make an amazing mayor. I'm very excited about him.
Are you worried about safety or anything with him being?
Not at all. Not at all. Because I think he's got it right. I think the police are the police and we need social workers to deal with some mental health problems.
Mental health problems, lady, like an elderly woman wearing signs about the face of fascism. Do tell me more.
Are you worried about your taxes going up?
No.
You support him so much so you'd be okay with your taxes going up?
Yes. I would be. If there's any chance of saving New York as a place for working people to live, he's going to be the one to do it. He's a democratic socialist. That's not Russian or Chinese. He's for health care for all. If that's socialism, then maybe we have to redefine what socialism is.
So it's not like Venezuelan socialism?
No, not at all. I used to be a judge. I was a New York State Supreme Court justice.
Now to former White House Press Secretary Karine Jean-Pierre, who was uniquely terrible at the job. Now she's written a book, and I don't know if you've heard, but she's black and she's queer.
Black woman, as a person who's also LGBTQ.
As a black woman, I am a black woman, I am a queer woman, I am an immigrant. Being a black woman, as a black woman myself, that is the thing that I understood as a black woman, is that I meant a lot to people because of the communities that I represented. And whether it was women of color, black women, queer community, LGBTQ community, immigrant. And as a black woman, and I have my queerness too.
Yes, being black and queer is the only answer she seems to have, well, to every question. DEI and the Biden administration's obsession with identity politics is how she got the job. And for Corinne, it's the only thing that matters. It's the answer to every question. And to show how absurd this is, let's look at just one example. I'm not going to bore you for any more, but just one example from that compilation. Let's see how she answers a question about regrets.
Corinne, do you have any regrets at all for anything that you said while you were speaking on behalf of this administration?
Look.
It's a simple yes or no. You don't even know.
No, because you're asking for a yes or no question. I want to put some context to it too. I woke up every day. I woke up every day very proud to be the White House press secretary. I woke up every day as a black woman who is queer.
Now let's hear from a couple of certifiable liars, MSNBC anchor Nicole Wallace and the governor of Illinois, J.B. Pritzker. Listen to this.
I haven't suggested that Donald Trump is Hitler. I wouldn't say.
I don't think any Democrat has. I actually, and I think it's a smear that they project back on to critics.
What now? No Democrat has called or suggested Donald Trump is Hitler? Excuse me?
Trump actually reenacting the Madison Square Garden rally in 1939. I write about this in my book.
From John Kelly's words, that Donald Trump is someone who, I quote, certainly falls into the general definition of fascist.
Where one side stands for freedom while the other meets the textbook definition of fascism, namely a far-right dictatorial regime like Hitler's Germany or Franco's Spain or Mussolini's Italy, but also white-ruled South Africa.
And to be praising Adolf Hitler is dangerous and it's also disgusting.
So just to be clear, when you said we do agree, President Biden believes that Donald Trump is a fascist.
I mean, yes.
He is paving the way to become a Vladimir Putin or to become an Adolf Hitler or a Kim Jong-un. That's what he wants to be.
Yeah, but Nicole Wallace and J.B. Pritzker want you to believe that no Democrat would dare liken Trump to Hitler. It's a smear campaign. Does J.B. Pritzker think we forgot all about this?
What I know is in the early days of the Nazi regime, they started slowly but surely taking away people's rights. And what we're seeing now is the very same thing. Well, we're talking about the death of a constitutional republic. That's what happened in Germany in 1933, 1934. And we're seeing today that you've got an administration in Washington that's ignoring court orders. This is literally the end of the republic as we know it.
And we do talk about MSNBC a lot in this segment. It is the mental asylum masquerading as a news network. We have an embarrassment of lefties losing it riches there. Rachel Maddow, Nicole Wallace, Joe Scarborough, Jen Psaki. And this next guy, Lawrence O'Donnell, who often gets overlooked because, let's be honest, he's quite boring. But be no doubt, he's as demented as they come. Remember this, Gold?
Stop the hammering. Stop the hammering out there. Who's got a hammer? Where is it?
I don't know.
Where's the hammer?
Where's the hammer? Where is the hammer? Well, let's look at Lawrence's latest output. Here he goes on a wacky, fact-free rant. And just imagine what sort of a fringe-dwelling loon you have to be to think CNN is too pro-Trump.
CNN is already owned by a right-wing Trump supporter and has compromised itself accordingly. The firing started right away in that new regime. That's why Jim Acosta is no longer there and others are no longer there. And everyone who remains has become much more careful in anything they might even think of saying about Donald Trump. And now CNN eagerly pays a Trump supporter to lie on CNN every day and night for Donald Trump.
Firstly, CNN is owned by Warner Brothers Discovery. It's a publicly traded company. It is virulently anti-Trump day and night. And the so-called liar that Lawrence claims is degrading the station is often the lone conservative on panels of 4 or 5 pundits all leaning left. Yes, this unseemly meltdown was all about Scott Jennings. An MSNBC anchor has lost it because CNN has a lone conservative on some of its panels to provide some level of balance.
Paying Scott Jennings to lie about Donald Trump is money very well spent. Scott Jennings, who used to be an aide to Senator Mitch McConnell, was not always a rabid, lying Trump supporter. When he first started appearing on television, he was capable of criticizing some of the more extreme Trump positions, but Scott Jennings figured out where the money is and how he could get his own podcast and decided to become the J.D. Vance of CNN. And here is the single goofiest thing ever said by anyone in charge of CNN in that network's history. The lost in America Englishman who heads CNN said, quote, "Scott's like D'Artagnan. He's got his sword out, and he's got about 4 Democrats against him, but he spiked them all off. That's much more like it, I think. He's a worthy opponent, as it were."
Well, that statement is 100% accurate. Scott Jennings does typically take on 4 rabid Democrats at once and comes out on top, not because of lies or playing on emotions, but because he sticks to the cold, hard facts, something foreign to MSNBC anchors like Lawrence. Now to a teeny tiny little agitator, 4'6" Quinn Hobble, who the leftist media love to present as some sort of lovable protester who's being victimised by ICE agents. But the footage suggests otherwise. Let's look at what Quinn has to say when speaking to the media and the behaviour that actually led to his arrest.
Only 4'6", and I can't see. What harm was I going to do to them?
Keep them back. Don't you tell me what to do, you have no idea how much I'd like to beat the shit out of you. Hey!
I decided that I was going to sit. So I was sitting in the grass, and my legs were just barely in the driveway. And they came up, I think there were 6 of them, and they grabbed me. And they started to drag me across the driveway on the ground. And they put their foot or something on my back and some part of them on my neck. It was scary.
There's nothing in my socks, don't feet are too small.
Being dragged across the ground when you can't see what's happening around you. They call Portland a war zone. The only people that's making it a war zone is ICE.
Shut up! Shut up! Don't talk!
Let's go back to CNN, and polling expert Harry Enten had more bad news for their Lefty Losing It audience.
You might think, given that the Republicans are in charge of both the House and the Senate, that a government shutdown might actually hurt the Republican brand. But in fact, it hasn't. If anything, it's been helped a little bit. Take a look here, the shift in net popularity versus pre-shutdown. Among when we're looking at the Republican Party overall, that brand actually up 2 points. That's within the margin of error, but clearly it hasn't dropped. Come over to this side of the screen. Look at the net approval ratings for Republicans in Congress. It's actually up 5 points since pre-shutdown. So what we're seeing here is the Republican brand in Congress has actually improved somewhat compared to where we were pre-shutdown, despite the fact that Republicans control. And that's the math that John Thune and Mike Johnson are looking at.
Yes, Republicans and independents are not blaming the Republicans for Schumer's shutdown. That's good news for the midterms for some.
It's rallying the base for sure. Look at this, the net approval rating up 12 points versus pre-shutdown. But it's not just with the base. It's also with the middle of the electorate. Look at this, among independents, it's up 8 points as well. So we've got a situation here where Republicans with the shutdown are actually rallying their base, but it's also something that's not hurting them with the folks in the middle. If anything, it's helping them with folks in the middle. And this is the type of math that if you're Republicans, you like to see, right?
Yes, the math is mathing, but what is the shutdown doing to the Democrats' chances at the midterms?
So how are they positioned right now?
Yeah, so, I mean, look, the generic congressional ballot, which traditionally Democrats have done really well on, and if you look at this point back when Trump was president the first time around, Democrats are up 11 points. Look at where it is now. Democrats are ahead, but they're actually only up 3 points. This is, in fact, the worst position Democrats have been on in a generic ballot at this point in midterm when there was a Republican president in the last 20 years, and this is no different from pre-shutdown, so Republicans aren't losing on this metric either. They become more popular, and they're actually in a pretty good position for them historically when it comes to the generic congressional ballot.
This is a concerning number for Democrats, are you saying?
This is a concerning number for Democrats because it's considerably worse than they traditionally do in midterm elections when there's a Republican president.
Harry Enten.
I'm going to go to one of the more egregious cases of cowardice and casual bastardry that I have seen in some time, and it involves the very slippery, the very slimy governor of California, Gavin Newsom, a man who wants to be president. He's not satisfied destroying California. He wants to start work on the rest of the country. But even by Gavin Newsom's gutter-dwelling standards, this is a new low. Remember the heartwarming, relatable story he told Charlie Kirk after Charlie was good enough to appear on Gavin's fledgling podcast? Well, he's now lying about what he said about his son being a massive Charlie Kirk fan. He changed the story because he was on CNN. First, let's listen to what he said to Charlie.
Last night, trying to put my son to bed, he's like, no, Dad, what time? What time's Charlie going to be here? What time? And I'm like, dude, you're in school tomorrow. He's 13. He's like, no. This morning, wakes up at 6 something. He's like, I'm coming. I'm like, he literally would not leave the house.
Did you let him take off school?
No, he did. Of course not. He's not here for a good reason. But the point is
you canceled school for like 2 years. One day.
The point is the point, which is you are making a damn dent.
Thank you.
Now, that's what he said earlier this year. And gosh, how quick-witted was Charlie. Quick as a flash, reminding Newsom about unnecessarily closing all those schools. Charlie did Gavin an enormous favour by agreeing to appear on his podcast. This is how Newsom repays him, by now walking back his comment that his son was a massive Charlie Kirk fan, because Gavin was on CNN and he knows all too well what that loopy audience thinks of conservatives, even the most friendly, joyful conservatives like Charlie. Listen carefully to Newsom here. What a snake.
So that's your son, obviously a fan of Charlie Kirk. What was the conversation like between you and your son after Charlie Kirk was assassinated?
Well, he called me, I don't know how he got a phone, but he called me from school that day, really alarmed, and all his friends were around the phone that wanted me to somehow express or understand what was going on. He wanted to know if he was dead. He wasn't a fan of him as much as he was familiar with him. And it was very revelatory for me because he's also out there. My son is 11, 12 years old. He's sitting there talking to me about not just Charlie Kirk, but folks like Andrew Tate. And he's, sort of beyond Joe Rogan, in many ways, sort of Facebook in so many respects of sort of this novelty of the pod, manosphere, et cetera.
He wasn't a fan. He was just familiar, really. What a detestable scrote. This man can't even remember how old his son is. He got it right back in March when he told Charlie he was 13. Now on CNN, he's claiming he's 11 or 12. He's aging backwards, Gavin. Your son is 14 now, by the way. Hunter is 14. Write it down somewhere so you don't forget. Really, though, what a weak character that he would seek to alter his own story about his son's admiration for Charlie Kirk. Just a snake. But Gavin Newsom is a saint compared to this next woman, Jennifer Welch, may just be the most hideous person on American TV, and that's saying something. A hideous, bitter, crazy, far-left conspiracy theorist loser who only appeals to fellow awfuls. That's affluent white female lefties who have lost any semblance of rationality, any semblance of decency too, it seems. So much so that they are comfortable saying stuff like this out loud.
and you think people are waking up only in New York City, you're mistaken. Look at this clip of a wine mom at the No Kings March. Play the clip.
Whatever his name was?
Charlie Kirk, ma'am?
Yeah, him is horrible. Horrible.
Charlie Kirk is horrible?
Yes, I'm glad he's not here.
You're glad he's dead?
Yes.
Why would you say something like that, ma'am?
Because he was horrible on the campuses, the college campuses. Horrible person.
You know what? I do the exact same thing.
Well,
would you be glad if I would die?
Maybe. I'd have to think about it.
You should be ashamed of yourself.
You should be ashamed of yourself.
Your friend just said she'd be happy if I died.
I think we need to...
So listen up, Democratic establishment. You can either jump on board with this or we're coming after you in the same way that we come after MAGA. Period.
Yep, she thinks it's great that some deranged dimwit is celebrating Charlie Kirk's murder and telling a young woman to her face she too deserves to die for believing in things like biological reality. She not only thinks it's great and that Democrats should back that reprehensible worldview, but she's threatening the few sane Democrats resisting it. She said, if you don't get on board, we'll come after you the way we come after MAGA. Now, reminder, this hideous woman can be seen on MSNBC. I played one of her clips from MSNBC just last week. This is the modern left, folks. They are ugly, they are full of bile, and they are crazy.
And that woman out in somewhere middle America saying, Charlie Kirk, he was a racist, he was a piece of shit. There are so many more of us than there are of them. And you are sitting on the sidelines, running your social media like complete dorks. It's embarrassing. Get your together.
Now, this week we saw billionaire climate change alarmist Bill Gates do a massive U-turn. Yes, he no longer believes climate change is catastrophic and is urging folks to walk away from global warming doomsday predictions. And it seems he is not alone. Let's check in with CNN polling expert Harry Enten, who explains that most Americans never bought the climate scaremongering.
About climate change now for decades upon decades upon decades. And the worry in terms of climate change, simply put, hasn't shifted. It has not reached the majority of Americans. The bottom line is that the climate change message that folks who, of course, believe that climate change is real and is quite worrisome, simply put, has not really worked with the American people.
Yep, the majority never bought the hysteria, and the stats are even worse for the global warming alarmists when you drill down into those figures. Drill, baby, drill.
Is it the biggest thing they're worried about?
Yeah, it is not anywhere close to being the biggest thing that people are worried about. What are we talking about here? Well, why don't we just talk about top issue facing the U.S., climate change. Well, I got some numbers for you on the screen right here. You don't have to be a mathematical genius to know that these numbers are not particularly high. Top issue facing the United States, climate change. It was 3% in 2021, 2% an average of polls in 2023, and this year the average of polls 2. It is very, very low on the list of priorities. I was trying to count it out in the Gallup poll, and basically it was so low down, you know, I was counting all the different issues, I almost lost track. It was like 15th or 20th. It was just very, very low down. So the bottom line is not only are we seeing that the number has not really moved over the last 36 years, but in terms of being the top issue, it simply put has not broken through.
Oh dear, that must really be devastating for the Al Gore grifters, all those renewable rent seekers. Let's look at one more data point that really explains who sees climate change as a top-tier issue.
In terms of how people feel it will impact them directly. What are you saying?
Yeah, I'll just note two things. Number one, your Harvard education paying off. But number two, right here, look at this. Climate change effect on my home area will be harder to stay here. Look, in 2023, it was 23%. Look at where we are now, 17%. Now, you know, these numbers are pretty comparable, but they're pretty comparable on the low side is what we're talking about here, is Americans simply put just don't think we'll have the type of impact that will really change their lives, which again goes back to the message that Bill Gates was saying, right? This is not something that's going to be devastating for humanity. It's something we can work our way out of. A lot of Americans agree, and even on this, we're talking about just 27% of Democrats who believe that climate change affecting my home area will be harder to stay here. So even on the left wing, where you'd expect the climate change message to hit most home, it simply put is not reaching that type of level in terms of the doomsday scenario that Bill Gates is talking about.
Interesting.